Best of r/entitled parents episode 70. So I know this is gonna be shocking to some of you, considering some of my previous posts about my mother and how I defended her from her entitled sister-in-law, my entitled aunt. But my mother has her own share of entitled/narcissistic characteristics, stuff I kinda chalk up to some pretty traumatic childhood events, which aren't mine to tell, and which caused her to have poor coping mechanisms for emotions. Let this be clear, I do not hate my mother, I do not feel she is abusive, she just has some toxic mannerisms that she could work on, but I don't know exactly how to tell her that. My father is not entitled or narcissistic emo, but he usually goes on along with what she says probably out of love, so he's more of her enabler. I'd like to go into more specifics on some of these things, but I'll need to get all my thoughts in order to know how to talk about the situations before I can. So for now I'll start with this one story. So a while back I got into a car wreck. Rough at the time, hospitalized for a few weeks, in a neck brace for a few months, and I still have some scars, but for the most part I'm over it. Thanks to my awesome attorney who fought hard despite the insurance company dragging their feet. The case was settled and I received 10 grand in compensation. I knew from the start, however, that all of this money was not gonna be used on and by me. My parents had a lot of bills we needed to catch up on, including back rent and loans from family, and since they did work really hard and suffered a lot while I was hospitalized, they were entitled to a small cut of the money. The plan was I'd spend a bit on some stuff I wanted, including a computer, equipment for recording like a camera, microphone and audio tools. They'd take their cut for bills and such, and then the rest I'd put away for college. Since I really wanted to go but we didn't have the money to pay full tuition, and I hate the idea of working my ass off for a decade of my life to pay back student loans. What we didn't plan on was shortly before I received the money, my dad ended up rage quitting his job. We all saw it coming. Management sucked ass and he was super unhappy there, but it kinda threw a wrench in the plans since now we needed to buy groceries and pay bills with my money and his severance pay while he looked for a new job. Now if it was just this, I wouldn't have had a problem. I understood this was a necessity to keep living under a roof. The only reason I wasn't, was when we started buying non-essentials all the time. Sure, I splurged a bit too, but none of my other purchases amounted to even $100 and they were far in between. But my parents were constantly eating out, suggested mainly by my mother, buying a bunch of things we didn't need, or could have been paid in other ways with my money, stuff for one of my grandmother's trips with her friends for example. I tried multiple times to make it clear to them that I wasn't comfortable with the liberties they were taking with my money, but every time I did they found some way to guilt me into letting them. Bringing up how much they suffered and struggled to keep things stable while I was hospitalized, how we agreed they could use some of the money as if they were still using only a small amount that they were owed, and dismissing every concern I had about my college plans with mentions of scholarships and grants and student loans as if they're given out in the abundance of breadcrumbs to pigeons. Once my dad even got especially irritated at my mentions of how they were using the money by asking me in an annoyed tone, "You planning on making any big purchases soon?" As if he had completely forgot about my plans to save for college. Classic gaslighting, and effective as I really didn't know how to respond. Needless to say, in the span of about 6 or so months the money was completely drained with not a cent saved for my college plans. At this point I suppose my mother felt a bit guilty, and promised me that now that my dad was finally working again and getting an income, he would start putting money back. However, judging by how things are going financially at the current moment, even with my dad working 2 jobs, I don't have high hopes of this being a promise she'll keep. I'm half expecting to ask her about it sometime in the future, only for her to go off on me about letting me stay here for 18 years of my life and possibly longer, therefore shouldn't be expected to pay me back since they pay me back with a home, food, and clothes. I'm close to having a job now too and will start putting money back myself. However, if they don't keep their promise, which I'm not confident they will, I don't know if I can ever forgive them. Thank you. Next. I've just stumbled upon this thread and can't help but notice how my mom would fit in so many of these EP stories. Latest one. I am a doctor and have told her not to call me while at work if it's not a real emergency, but she does it regardless, so I just deny her calls. Last week she called me like 6-7 times in a row, so, thinking it must be urgent, I answer. Mind you, I was with a patient, in my office. Me, What happened, Mom? Can you check your FB Messenger? I can't decide which bag to get myself for Christmas. Me, whisper shouting, Mom, I am at work, do not ever call me at work for trivial stuff again. I am hanging up. Shouting my ear off. I am your mother and nothing is more important in this whole world than your mother. You should always make time for me. I raised you. Not even a person's life should be more important than the woman who birthed you. Plus, I can't just waste all my day at the mall waiting for you to finish your patience. Needless to say, I hang up and turned off my phone. She got so pissed, she bought herself both bags to cool off. Thank you. Next. This happened over 10 years ago. So some of the dialogue may not be word for word, but it was the actions that are key to the story. Me and my wife don't have any children. We were not able to have any due to health reasons, but we used to live in a suburb which had many families with small children. What we would do each year is go all out on Halloween for the local children. It is a way we give back to our community and have fun while doing it. We probably have enough Halloween decorations and animatronics to supply a couple haunted houses with stuff left over. So we try to do something different every year for the kids and dress up to hand out candy. It is our favorite holiday. Each year we would divide the decorations. In the backyard we had stoves, scary music, fog machines, several animatronics, and it was pretty cool but intimidating to some of the smaller children. Some kids would cry out of fear if their parents suggested going through the backyard to get candy. In the front yard we had some more tame decorations and my wife was dressed up handing out candy. In the backyard I had a huge candy dish set up, but I was hidden out of sight controlling some of the effects and animatronics. This year we had 20 pounds of candy, 4 5-pound bags, split between the front yard and the backyard. After the first year of setting up the elaborate displays, our house became the must-see attraction on Halloween, and we learned very quickly that it is always better to have too much candy than too little. We would do something extra special for the kids that were first to show up. One year it was king-size candy bars for the first 10 kids, another year we gave candy and $1 coins. This year we were feeling generous, so we decided $5 to the first 10 kids, which was split between the front yard and back. My wife had $5 5 bills she handed out and I had 5. I chose to lay out 5 regular-sized candy bars with a $5 bill taped to each one, and set them in front of the huge bowl of candy which had both 5-pound bags emptied into it. Now I should point out that we never had any issues in previous years. I always use the honor system in the backyard, allowing the kids to get their own candy, and my wife would hand it out. The kids had a great time and were always respectful. We actually garnered a lot of thanks from neighbors for going all out for the kids. The kids who enjoyed it and would go out of their way to do nice things in return for us, such as shoveling our driveway, cutting our grass, etc. Okay, back to the story. This particular year it had gotten dark before the kids started trick-or-treating. So I took advantage of the darkness with some of the more stealthy animatronics, ones that moved but were hard to see because they were not lighted, like snakes, spiders and bats. From the sidewalk, kids that were not scared or wanted to be scared would walk down a small path around a few trees where I had let the grass grow close to knee-high, which helped camouflage the strobe lights and fog machines. I would have a few small outdoor speakers playing some kind of creepy or scary sounds or music as the kids would walk down the path to a clearing in front of our shed where we had this huge creepy looking wicker chair with a motion triggered zombie that sat in it. We would have to pass in front of the zombie to get to the table which had the candy and a sign stating that we use the honor system, please take one piece of candy. Well, the first kids showed up, a boy about 8 or 9 years old, his 4 or 5-year-old sister with their mom. It was not uncommon for kids to be accompanied by their mom or dad if they dared to go into the backyard. Both kids took one look down the dark path and chose to go to the front yard for candy. This continued for about 10 minutes before a kid about 13 or 14 gathered up the courage to come through the backyard. Yes, I scared the crap out of him, but when he made it to the table he just stood there. I wasn't sure if he was still shook up from the zombie jumping up because he just stood at the table for a moment afraid to take any candy. This happens a lot too, because they think something will grab them if they touch the candy. One year we used the candy bowl with the hidden hand that would do just that, but not this year. I set down the controls and stepped out from the shadows, which scared him again. I was wearing a long black cloak and black gloves and skeleton face makeup to assure him that he could take one of the $5 candy bars. He grabbed it and ran quickly back up the path to what I guess was a younger brother who had received candy from the front door. Me and my wife had a system to communicate when someone would take one of the $5 candy bars so we could make sure no one would go to the backyard and then try to go to the front yard. I would flip the floodlights on the corner of the house, which she could see. We had a sign along our wooden fence that pointed out that you could choose the scary path or the less frightening front door, so parents didn't have to take small kids into the backyard and leave with them crying from being scared. It was probably 5 minutes before two kids that looked about 10 or 12 years old came through the backyard together. They walked slowly, teasing each other along the way, jumping and screaming out of fear occasionally when one of the bats or spiders or other animatronics activated by their proximity or motion. They eventually made it to the candy table, after screaming when the zombie lurched forward as they walked past it, but each took $5 bars. This left me with 2 more to give out and then I would be on the normal fun size Halloween candy. 5 lbs of Snickers, Twix, Milky Way, 3 Musketeers, and Hershey's. Next group I could see was 2 smaller kids, around 3-5 years old, with an obese kid who looked 14 or 15 accompanied by EM. The 2 little ones made their way to the front porch after EC motioned for them to go get candy. Then EM and EC decided to walk down the path into the backyard together. One of the first things I hear wasn't a startled scream but the stuck-up bitch voice of EM. EM, what a horrible waste of money. This is ridiculous. It was shrill and snide sounding. What she said angered me a bit but I didn't want to ruin it for her kid so I rushed to reset the zombie and to take cover. Now, EM made sure she was speaking loudly enough so that anyone in the backyard could hear her. EM. This isn't something for kids. This is sick. I assumed it was a front to make herself not sound scared. I could see she had a deep grip on EC's shoulder as they walked down the path. They both screamed as one of the bats had swooped down at them. They ran on a wire when triggered and one could come at you from the left and one from the right. EC sounded like he was getting shook up pretty good because he was whining, not saying anything, just this and steady whine, which was odd for an older kid. EM decided to chime in again quite angrily. These people are sick. We do not need this in our neighborhood. Just plain sick. It was quiet again until EC screamed again when he had triggered one of the snakes in the grass. I could hear him trying to fight back tears at this point, like a bumbling, whimpering cry, but they pressed on. EM, I will take care of this. Just you watch. Now I was assuming this was a parent that was trying to reassure their frightened kid, although he was a teenager, so I did think much about her comment at that moment. I was too busy thinking in my head where I would scare them. In retrospect I wish I had paid attention better and realized it was an EM up to no good. I stood behind the shed waiting silently for the zombie to trigger. When it was triggered it lurched forward while making an angry moan. It should have happened within a minute of the snake. After a minute and a half I peeked around the shed to see EM and EC waddling. Their size prevented them from being able to run towards the entrance. It only took me a second to notice they had stolen all of the candy that was on the table and the $2.5 candy bars. I was pissed. I started running after them. I am a tall guy and very fast on my feet. I got about 3 good strides in before I tripped over wires. WTF. I looked down and saw that EM had cut the wires onto the animatronic bats. When I looked up again I could see her gathering her 2 little ones and hurrying them to her car with EC. I was seething at this point. Her car was parked in front of my next door neighbor's house. I was at full speed as the car started and she stomped on the gas as I punched her passenger window, where her fat EC was holding the full candy bowl up with a huge grin on his tear-streaked face. The window didn't break, it only made EM recklessly speed out of the parking spot, with no regard for the kids that were trick-or-treating all over the neighborhood. Several parents and neighbors came up and asked me what was going on. I explained what they had stolen. Thankfully one of the parents had got the license plate number before she got off our street. I was ticked but realized that we had other kids that wanted to visit. I closed the gate and explained to my wife what had happened. We decided to split the front door candy so we could at least pass out candy in the backyard, allowing other kids to enjoy our haunt. When I went back there to fix what EM had broken I realized that she had cut power cords as well. Fucking bitch. I took the candy back to my wife at the front door knowing it would take me a while to fix the damage. I quickly began making repairs and adjustments. About 5 minutes later the police had shown up, thanks to a neighbor that had called them. They took a description of the car and plates while I filed a report about the incident. By time I had finished with the police, the 2-hour trick-or-treating had ended. My wife had about half a bowl of candy left and said she might have seen about 100 kids. I had seen 3 and 2 thieves who ruined the rest of the night for the other children that wanted to attend. We had considered holding over for another night and allowing kids to come again, but unfortunately the weather had got cold and very rainy, which plays hell on our animatronics. It was a few days before the cops had located EM. She lived almost 30 miles away and brought her kids to my neighborhood because they had heard the rumors about our mini haunt. She and her son was charged with destruction of property, vandalism and criminal mischief. Apparently several cops' kids were supposed to attend but never got the chance after EM and EC, which angered several officers. EC was charged as a minor. The police also recommended I also file a lawsuit in civil court for the damages, which I gladly did. The fallout: in court, EM and EC tried to claim that I was bringing Satanism into the community, a community she didn't live in, and that she felt that she had to do something. They were as snide as ever in court. EM was found guilty on destruction of property and vandalism but not criminal mischief. She got 6 months in county jail. EC was removed from her home and spent the next 2 years in juvenile detention. Apparently this was not the first time he was in trouble. The court never elaborated on his previous crimes due to him being a minor. As for the civil lawsuit, I won and she was ordered to pay me $4,000 in damages plus another $6,000 in lawyer fees. The neighbor across the street is an attorney and represented me. We continued our haunt for 2 more years until we moved out to the rural area we live in now. We don't get trick-or-treating kids because the nearest house to ours is about 1/4 mile away. I hope you enjoyed this story. I am sorry if there are any punctuation or grammar errors. I have more stories to tell, so stay tuned. TL. Dr. EM and her cowardly porky son ruin a favorite Halloween tradition for an entire neighborhood. Edit. Thank you for the upvotes. I didn't think this would get this much attention. Thank you for the awards, and thank you very much for the kind words, it has meant a lot to me. Thank you. Next. Obligatory mobile. Small details change to maintain privacy. So, if you haven't read my other 2 posts about my Sil, she's basically a overly conservative, anti-vax, extremely religious spoiled brat. We had an issue at Christmas that I though finally had us no longer on speaking terms. See my previous story if you're interested in the details on that. Nope, I was wrong. Drama just doesn't seem to end with her. My Sil has a small little mixed breed dog. And I mean, this dog was tiny, short-haired and also old. She was starting to go deaf and was blind in one eye. This happened about a week ago. One night at home, it was just me, my son, and my own 2 fur babies. I hear a scratching at me deck door and my dogs went nuts at the sound. When I went outside, I saw my Sil's dog shivering from the cold and covered in snow. I immediately bring the poor girl inside and wrap her in a blanket. My dogs are now going crazy as they are trying to get to her. My husband and I have 2 very large mixed breed dogs and, while they would never hurt another dog, they are still very excited to see another dog. Not to mention, Sil's dog is an unneutered female. So yeah, they are very excited and trying to get to her while I'm trying to warm her up and keep her away from them. The poor girl was freezing cold and very scared of the 2 large dogs trying to get to her. I'm holding her while trying to text Sil and keep the dogs at bay while also trying to keep them quiet while my infant son naps. Me texting, "Hey, your dog got out of the house. We have her here. Sil doesn't live too far from us." I was hoping she would be mature enough to at least come and get her. After about 20 minutes of her not responding, I text my Mill, telling her we have Sil's dog and she hasn't responded to my text. She texted back that she was at an appointment and would come get the dog as soon as she could. Mill has dog sat for her before and was going to hold on to her until Sil went and got her. After another 20 minutes, I texted Sil again and this time I finally get a response. "Sil, just put her back outside. She will find her way home eventually." Any respect I had left for that woman was now officially gone. I call her and it takes 2 or 3 times for her to answer. Sil, yes, me, are you joking? Sil, it's freezing cold and dark. Someone could hit her with a car and she's deaf and almost blind. Sil, she'll be fine. Just put her outside. She hangs up and I am shaking in rage. I took some deep breaths and call her back. Took 2 times for her to pick up again. Sil, what? I went off. Me, you are insane if you think I'm putting this dog outside in the cold. I don't know how she got out of your house, but this is your dog. You need to come and get her. Sil, but I can't leave my girls alone in the house. Me, then bring them with you. I don't care. My dogs are going nuts and my son is trying to sleep. Come and get your dog. If you can take care of her, find her a home who can. Sil, I can't do that. My girls will be heartbroken if they lose her. Me, they are going to be heartbroken if she's hit by a car or if she freezes to death. Sil, just put her outside, and don't call me again. She hangs up and I had to fight to not throw my phone across the room. I almost cried in relief when my husband finally came home and asked what was going on. I told him, still unbelievably pissed off. Now he was in a rage. My husband and I are huge dog lovers and we love our dogs like we love our son. He silently took the poor dog and left the house. He returned about 20 minutes later, red-faced and still angry. After he calmed down, he told me what happened. He went to her house, dropped the dog in her house and went completely off on her. I still don't know exactly what he said, but basically, he screamed at her that she was a stupid spoiled brat and if she didn't want the dog, she needed to be an adult and rehome her. I called my mill, who was finally done with her appointment, and told her what happened. She apologized and said she would also have some words with her daughter. I have lost any respect I had left for her and the only thing that upsets me is my family will now probably not have a relationship with her girls. I have no idea what will happen at future family events. I hate how much the family has been torn apart, but my husband has told me that this has been building up for years. As far as I know, she still has the dog. Whenever we were at her home in the past, she has never openly abused the dog. I think she was just lazy and didn't want to leave her house. Our guess is one of the girls put her outside to go to the bathroom and the dog just wandered off. This has been the first time this has happened and I pray to God it doesn't happen again. And if it does, I hope she gets the dog taken away so she can go to a home that would watch her carefully and take better care of her. I really hope this drama with her ends soon. Thanks for reading. Thank you. Next. This is an old story. I was 23. My ex-BF at the time was 21 and still going to college. I was his first girlfriend and he lived about an hour away from me with his dad, a doctor, and his stepmom. They treated this poor kid like he was a hired help. His brother was dorming at college and his stepsister lived with her boyfriend, which meant that even though they had rooms on the second floor, they remained unused for almost the entire year. So they forced him to sleep in the unfinished basement. No walls, no floor, no heat. Just a bed and some of his belongings. I told him that this was insane and that there was literally 2 rooms on the second floor that weren't being used since his siblings weren't living there. On top of that there was a bathroom down in the basement but it was not functioning, so you had to go up a level to go to the bathroom. It was finally at my encouragement that he said something to his dad and his dad immediately decided he hated me because he knew I was the reason. He told his own son that his siblings needed those rooms in case they ever wanted to come back and visit and he should just be glad they gave him a bed to sleep in. His stepmother actually intervened and said that they could maybe do some stuff to make the basement more homely, but of course it couldn't cost his cheap ass dad more than $100. So they put up some curtains to cover the walls and cleaned up the dead rodents in the ceiling and gave him a dehumidifier to help with mold smell. How big of them. Thank you. Next. So a bit of background: I am in high school and play rugby for our city and am a prop, so I'm got a bit of heft. The cast tech, entitled Kid M, entitled Mummy Me. So I go to a gym with my rugby team every Tuesday and it's intense. To start we had a running drill and I got 38 reps in 3 minutes, and considering I'm a forward that's pretty good, and as a call out my score the M decides to snort and nudge the parents next to her but is scolded by said parent. We then moved into a circuit drill and get to the bike station. I swung my leg over to get if and this crotch goblin walks by and I nearly take his head off. Then we move into free weights, and during shoulder presses I am taking my arms down and the ek decides to walk past and I almost hit him with the 30 kg weights, but I start a new rep too early so I lost that last one. Finally during slam ball with the medicine balls, 12 kg, I go to slam down and I've still got a grip of it, but just as I let it go ek walks underneath me so I struggle to stop but I manage, then ek walks away. I can't believe people let their child wander away like that. BTW, I'm on mobile. English is my first language so no excuses. Thank you. Next. Hello. This is my first story here. Sorry if my English isn't good. That's because I'm not a native speaker. For some context in the story, me, my mom's friend, go to Brenna. That's a Polish name. We are Polish and live in Poland. There is a river going all across the town, and there's usually 4 people per slot. We have a dog, border collie, the best dog I have ever met. Okay, to the story. Cast, AX me. First 2 letters of my username, mmom, F mom's friend, EGM entitled grandma, EGP entitled grandpa, K1, K2. So we were just doing stuff. M was reading a book, AX and F were in the river. At that place the water was only 10 cm. Talking about Subnautica, F plays only Minecraft and Soul Knight, but it is not important for the story. About an hour later, enter, family of EGM and EGP. K1, who was probably 5, started crying. EGM yelled at F, he is 46. This is how it went, EGM, why this dog isn't on a leash and a muzzle? I think it is called a muzzle. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did I say that my dog is very polite and on a leash? F. It's not my fault that your grandson started crying. EGP. Get out of the water, now. Ax, hey. Don't yell at us. We are just minding our own business. And you, stinky old man, can't tell us what to do. EGP. Oh yes? Will you say the same thing if I will call the cops? At this point entered my mom. And trust me, if you mess with her, you better run the F away from her if you don't want to be completely destroyed. M. The F did you say to my child? Oh boy, they were shocked. EGM. You better watch your fang mouth. B. My mom was so pissed, she said a lot, but I'll skip this part, because it was mostly swears. They left, cops didn't arrive, and rest of the day was chill.